My name is Sharon, and my husband and son treat me like a maid. Seems like I failed in disciplining not just my husband, but my son as well. That's why they treat me the way that they do. I don't feel like I'm seen as a wife or a mother. My husband Terry's attitude started to sour after our son Vic was born. Vic is already an adult now, and it's like there's two of my husband. They make me do everything while they just sit around. I'm not exactly the docile type, so when they make me do all these things, I always refuse.
Only 2 sides with today's dinner? You should be able to at least make a good dinner. That's right, there's no way I'll fill up on this much food.
Complaining like that all the time. Hey, I'm not your maid, so when things are busy with work, sometimes there won't be as many sides. Even still, I cook everything for you guys every day, so how about you eat without complaining? If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it, is what I said back. Of course, that didn't shut them up at all.
You only work part-time, right? You shouldn't be getting tired from a part-time job. It's weird that you're getting mad at this. If I get married, I want to marry someone with good manners, unlike you, they retorted.
With things at home like this every day, I can never rest. Nothing I do is ever good enough for those two. They nitpick about every little detail. Of course, if I didn't make enough for their liking, I've told them they can make their own themselves. But they don't seem to understand that. They seem to think their word is law. So no matter how hard I fight back, they always get their way. I know the harder I fight back, the more they look down on me. But I can't just follow their every order. It's not in my nature to leave things unsaid. But I'm tired from all of this as well. It seems like they won't change either, though. So I had pretty much given up on expecting anything from them. But having nobody around me on my side was starting to get to me mentally. I thought about talking about things with my in-laws or friends, but Terry isn't in contact with his parents anymore. And when we're around friends, Terry is a completely different person, much more kind. It seems like he only says good things about me to others. Getting Terry to tell him to stop is probably the best way to stop Vic as well. While those two are working together like this, there's nothing I can do. I'm on my own here in this house, and knowing nobody can help hurts. I complain about it to my friend at work every once in a while, but since they've never seen it happen at all, things like that can happen in any family, is how they saw things. It wasn't much help, but I was still thankful they listened to me. This morning, Terry said,
I get annoyed when I see you. It's the worst going to work in that mood. Could you stay in the room until I leave for work?
I got really mad when he said that. Then, since I can't leave the room, you can make your own breakfast. He replied with,
What? No, wake up earlier and make it before I wake up. Then if you go back after, I can get ready without seeing you. Use your head a bit.
After everything he said before, this got me even more angry. I was going to say more, but he stopped listening and left for work. Vic saw this all and laughed.
If you don't want Dad to hate you more, shouldn't you listen better?
He said, also leaving for work. All of this ruined the rest of the day for me. Of course, I thought about getting a divorce before, but Terry didn't want that.
It'd look bad to everyone around us if we got divorced.
That's the one thing he's careful about. It's so ridiculous that I was at a loss for words. I can't forge the divorce papers, so I'm not sure what I can do. If I could, I'd divorce him and leave this nightmare right away. I've stayed at my parents' house before as well, but I get worried about Vic, and nothing changes, and I don't want to abandon him either. I was hoping I'd come back to him regretting what he's done, but he never does, so things just repeat over and over. I don't have the energy to go back to my parents either. I just continue on exhausted every day. But if I ever do leave this house again, Vic is an adult now, so I don't think I'll ever come back. A few days later, something happened that surprised me. Vic had gotten engaged at some point. I didn't even know that he was dating anyone. And today, Vic brought his girlfriend Taylor to our house. It was the first time he'd ever brought a girl into the house. And he didn't let me know either, making things even more surprising. I thought Terry didn't know either, but it seems like he told him.
Oh, you must be Vic's fiancé. Nice to meet you.
He welcomed her warmly. I was the only one who didn't know what was happening. Taylor greeted me as well. She seemed like a polite, normal girl, which relieved me. They came to tell us they decided the date they'd sign their marriage registration.
I'll get married to her. Congratulate me.
That was how he told me about his engagement. It was so sudden, I didn't even know anything about her. And it's someone like my son would choose, so I was a bit worried. I might have another enemy now, but for now, she seemed very polite. It was unexpected in a good way. Sorry for not introducing myself sooner. Let's get along well. She was trying to get along, so I wanted the same. I was very happy, but a bit uneasy about all of this. I wondered if maybe she didn't know how Vic really is. But I can't just tell her he's evil. It was a complicated situation. As far as I could see, Vic and Terry were being nice to her. The complete opposite of how they treat me. Terry was the same to me before we were married, so I wasn't sure if she'd be happy marrying my son. Maybe I'm not the best parent for thinking like this about my own son's marriage. I just don't want anyone else to feel like I do. I can't say that she won't be happy marrying Vic. I just think she has to know how he really is. I wondered how I should show her how things are. It might be weird of a mother to do this. If I tell her directly, Vic might say some pretty horrible things to me. Other than that, nothing else came to mind. I might be the only one who can help her. That's how I thought. Sometime later, she sent me a message. Thank you for having me at your house, but I felt like things might have been a bit awkward. It seemed like she had something she wanted to talk about with me. I thought now was the perfect time, so I went to meet her. She said, Vic's always smiling at me, but when he looks at you, he's got a really cold look. I felt like Terry was always moving you around as well. I'm sorry if I'm getting the wrong idea here. I just thought it was better if I knew before I got married. She was really sharp. As for me, I didn't notice anything wrong with Terry before I got married. I warned her before telling her about Vic's true nature. I can tell you, but it might be shocking for you. Do you really want to know? In response to this, I want to know everything, is what she answered. I told her how he is around the house, also how my husband was before and after marriage. It must have been hard to hear this for her, seeing how she's about to get married to him. She had a really serious look on her face as she was listening. I see. That's how he is at home? Thank you for telling me. But I'm sorry, I don't think you're lying. But I also don't hate Vic after hearing this. I think I'll go through with the wedding, but don't worry though. I'm on your side, she said, and I wasn't planning on forcing her to stop the wedding. I respect her choice, and all she has asked me to do was tell the truth. And so, I'm happy to have someone as wonderful as you in the family. But I might get told there's no use for me now that you're here. I'm usually treated like that by then, is what I told her. I don't really know why I said that to her. But what she said back was, If you get kicked out, I'll leave as well. But I can't imagine him being that cruel. I'd be really shocked if he did something like that. I apologized to her for saying what I did. She told me not to worry about it. I'm happy she took what I said seriously also. My words alone aren't enough to make someone believe that, but it's good for her to know beforehand. If something happens, she'll be prepared. She promised not to tell Vic and Terry about our talk, which was relieving. Whatever happens now, I decided I'd be on her side. She felt like a daughter to me. I felt like I had to protect her, but it'll be better if nothing happens at all. Soon after, Vic and Taylor got married with no issues. Now, she really was my daughter in a way. I was happy to have such a good daughter. But, like I expected, I was kicked out after that. Terry and Vic started talking about something as soon as the marriage was finalized. They were talking about Taylor living with them. Of course, this was the first I heard of it.
I haven't talked to Taylor about it yet, but I'm sure she'll be okay with it. If she comes to live here, we can have delicious meals and live happily every day.
So it seemed like she really didn't hear anything about it. Terry started listening to Vic now, who was talking to himself until now.
That sounds nice. It'll get more lively in here.
Hearing their words, I started to shake. I felt sorry for Taylor. Isn't living together something you should talk about with her before you decide? This is the first I'm hearing about it as well. And just as I opened my mouth, the two of them started to attack.
Huh? I told her we'd live with my parents, but you can leave. Taylor would do all the chores from now on.
Terry joined in as well.
That's right. You've done your job. You wanted to get divorced, right? I still don't like how it looks to others, but nobody will notice after a bit. I'll sign the papers, so bring them here,"
he said, making a terrible offer. The way they looked down at me feels horrible. But this was my chance, so I brought him the papers. He really did sign his name on them.
"There you go, I filled it out. If you go, don't come back now."
I didn't want to come back here anyways. I gathered my things and said one last thing before I left. Taylor knows how you really are. After I'm gone, if she leaves, you two are stuck on your own to figure out how to do housework. Good luck. I'm never coming back. They looked a bit surprised to hear me say that, but I left before they could say anything back. I felt so good to finally be free, but I was worried about Taylor. I decided to at least send her a message saying what had happened. I don't know if she read it or not. A few days later, I got messages from both Vic and Taylor. What Vic sent was,
"After you left, Taylor said she wanted to get divorced. She told me I'm a horrible person for what I've done to you. She said she didn't think I was like that. I can't believe you told her all those things. I don't want to divorce her, so please come back."
This is how I responded. I said pretty clearly that I wasn't coming back. I'm already divorced with your dad. We're not family anymore. There's no reason to live together. She's right, so shouldn't you just let her go? Vic still didn't give up.
"I just got married a bit ago. There's no way I'd give up on my marriage this fast. Please, Mom, I'll apologize for how I was before. I got in a big fight with Dad, too. I don't want things like this anymore," he said.
The fight was about whether Terry was responsible for me leaving. It seemed like Vic accused him first. I was mad at them and shocked how they blamed each other so quickly. I didn't plan on listening to it anymore. Sorry, but no matter what you say, I'm not coming back. Good luck with figuring things out together. I told them that, cut contact with them, and have been staying at my parents' house since. Their house is really close to my work, so it's nice. And the message Taylor sent was, "Thanks to you, I saw how he really is. I'd rather be divorced than live with someone like that. So that's what I'll do. Thank you for helping me," she wrote. I was proud of how strong she was. What Vic had said was,
"Mom wanted to leave. Well, things are better off without her anyways."
It seems like him saying that made her realize. It was surprising he showed his true nature so quickly. The marriage must have made him too confident. He's my son, but he got what he deserved. Vic and Terry practically mirror each other, so they must not be taking the fight very well. It felt nice for me to hear, though. I'm the happiest I've been in years, not having to hear complaints anymore. I'm enjoying my calm divorced life now.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. "Take care." That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did,